So for today's video, we're going to be trying to recreate a sun visor that is adjustable. And I made this one before, and I used the Mood Fabrics pattern for this hat. And I just cut off the top essentially and then sewed it. The fabric, I think, is what makes it kind of like lay weird, but overall it kind of worked. So I went one size smaller to get a more snug fit around the headpiece, and yeah, essentially just cut it off and then top stitched it, and it worked out okay. But ideally I'm looking for something like this where it's adjustable, and that would be, I think, my ideal hat for like going to sports games. I don't know, anything. So I want to recreate this but with material. And this is just like one of those typical sun hats. This one is actually a little bit big for me, so it's not my favorite either. But it does have Velcro at least, so it's adjustable. It does have wire on the outsides over here and over here, which helps it keep its shape really well. And it's made out of a straw material that's kind of like flexible. The things I do like about it though is the Velcro, and I think I can achieve this by using sew on Velcro and just attaching it like this. I do like that you can roll it up, because it's really like, the one thing I don't like about this hat also is, how do you throw this in your bag? You know, I don't want to wear it all day, but I want to throw it in my bag, and I would probably just scrunch it up like this. But I think over time it's going to end up looking all weird and misshapen. I would love to have it open on one side so that I could roll it like this, and maybe put an elastic like this too. When I looked at this pattern, this is the front and this is the back, and the seams are at the side. So it's not like I can just cut it over here or seam rip it here and sew it up, because then the seam will be right in the front. So I kind of have to adjust the pattern. Yeah, that's what we're going to be doing today. So this is total experiment. I may have to tweak it. I'll just take you guys along with me in my thought process. And if you have a favorite hat, then maybe this is how you can recreate it. Like a favorite bucket hat, a favorite visor like this. I actually have bought patterns also, but I think that'll be a different video where I show you the other visor bucket hat that I bought. So for now, we're just going to get some paper. I just have some large paper. You can just tape together some regular computer paper, but I had this from my kids' easel from when they used to, you know, when they're little and used to do artwork at home. The reason why I have the Mood Fabrics bucket hat pattern out is because I'm going to lay this flat. Okay, let's think about this. I'm going to lay this flat and trace it kind of like this. I think the brim shape is probably the most important. The problem for me is that I don't quite understand the concept of how curved this top part needs to be. So in the pattern, you know, it's a little bit curved. I don't know, it's like if I just measured it around and like made it 2.5 inches wide, I don't think that will work. It has to be cut on a curve, and I don't want to have to do the work to figure out what the curve, the degree of the curve needs to be for a hat. So I'm just going to take this existing pattern and add on to it. That way, you know, hopefully it preserves the curve and dimensions that it needs to be a successful hat. So that's why I have this pattern cut out. I'm going to trace this out, cut it out, and kind of recreate this piece, but have it be so that it's either one whole piece or ideally one whole piece. Can't do that until I trace this out and measure it. Sure, I could use a measuring tape, but I think this way might be better. I wish I had those weights. I do not though, so I'm just gonna have to wing it. I also do like how it's curved over here too. Whereas the Mood pattern will not be curved, so I will have to adjust that too. I'm just going to cut this out. Okay, so I have my piece cut out. I just folded it in half so that the curved parts kind of met, kind of got the center point. It's okay if it's not 100% exact since we're not going to use this as the actual pattern. And then because this pattern is a whole one and this one is like a front piece, I'm going to have to essentially get the size from the front piece. So I don't know if that makes sense. So I folded it in fourths, and the way that I figured out the end part over here is I'm going over because I'm matching it up more towards this point, because I'm going to get this curve. I'm going to have to essentially get it to here and then cut a curve for this pattern. I don't know. I'm just making this up as I go along. So now I'm going to measure up the center point on the brim to this center point, and then let's see which of these sizes matches up the best. So for this side, it is 1, 2, 3, the fourth one from the top. 1, 2, 3. So size E. This side is 1, 2, the fourth one from the top. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out size E for these two pieces, and then we're going to join it together and go from there. Oh, and also size E is the adult small. So that is actually my regular hat size that I would use for this pattern anyways. Okay, so we have our two brim pieces, our two side panel, that's what it's called. And now we're just going to pretty much recreate the hat. I am going to cut this down the middle. Yeah. Okay, and I'm going to tape it to this side at 1/2 inch seam allowance because that's what they use. So I'm just going to get my measuring tape, mark 1/2 inch on both sides. Okay, and then we're just going to tape it. And it lines up perfectly because this is how it's being sewn. Like if it was fabric, you have your two pieces and this is where it's sewn together, right? So it matches. So that looks pretty similar to my pattern, right? This is the center and this is what it looks like. So now we're going to work on the curve. Yeah, I'm pretty much just going to trace this. Okay, I like this curve better than this curve. I think, I mean, also this is the one I did more accurately. So I'm going to just trace this. And then we're going to fold it in half and we can cut it out here. So I don't want to go past this point because this part needs to kind of match up with that so that it's, when we put it together, it's going to be kind of like this, right? It will match up. So now we have our brim. That looks good. Now we're going to do the same thing for this side panel piece. So this is actually like this, and it's going to get reconnected this way. So this is fold line. So when we cut out the pattern, it will be like this. This doesn't have to have a curve, but I do want to cut it down to 3 inches. So because this is for the bucket hat, right? And this is the crown. This is going to go all the way up to like the top of your head, and that is just too long. So for this one, I cut it down to 3 inches. You can just get your measuring tape, or if I have my seam gauge right here, I would use that instead. Just gonna keep marking 3 inches from the edge. I really hope this works. I guess if I posted this video, that means it has worked, or at least came close. And the reason why I chose 3 inches is because I measured this part and it's like 2¼ inches. But if you take into consideration a 1/2 inch seam allowance for between here and here, and then like a fold down or 1/2 inch, I guess, turn under it's gonna be, it should actually be 3¼ inch, but this one is also pretty wide. It could be a little bit smaller. Okay, so now we have our pattern. I'm pretty excited. Okay, so this is perfect. I have the fold in the middle versus how it was before, right? Where you had to have it be like half, half, and a whole. I think I have to tape it again right here since I cut the tape part off. So yeah, now I'm just gonna cut out my fabric with this pattern. Okay, so I cut out my 2 pieces for the cotton canvas. I'm just going to make maybe like a 1/8 of an inch snip in just to mark the centers of these. And this is a pretty heavyweight kind of canvas. I mean, not super heavyweight. It's still pretty flexible, but I recommend for one of your fabrics, it should be a little bit more substantial. For my lining fabric, I'm going to be using this kind of cotton, and it's very, thin, kind of flexible. I'm going to put heavyweight interfacing on this, or at least a medium weight. But either way, interfacing with the thin one, and match it with a heavier weight canvas, or you could also interface thinner cotton also if you can't find one, and that'll work too. So just gonna go ahead and cut out my lining fabric. So my lining fabric is directional, so you do have to think about how you're gonna place your pattern piece. In my head, I'm gonna make this reversible if this works. So I do want it to be, presentable from the outside, and I want the flowers to be going this way. So I'm gonna fold my material, and then for the brim part, I'm gonna cut it, I'm gonna move it up and cut it this way so that it kind of matches the flowers on the brim. Okay, so I have my fabric cut out. I also made the little notch at the center for both of these pieces. And now I'm just gonna cut off about 3 inches of Velcro. I bought these on Amazon, these big rolls, and they've come in really handy. I love like that there's so much, so I don't have to worry about running out. And this is sewn on Velcro. I also bought one in black. I think it may have come together. I don't know. I'll link it down below. So my thinking for the Velcro is, if I wanted it like this, I could just attach this into the seam on the band and sew this one on. It will have unless I'm really tricky and I sew it into the lining, it will have it kind of like, you'll see a little square on the outside, and I won't be able to make it reversible. But if I figure out a different way, I will let you know. But for now, I guess we're going to do it this way, exactly like it is on this hat. Oh, another option is if you don't want this like piece sticking out and you would like the hat to be a little bit smaller, you could have this part sewn on here and then sew the Velcro on the inside and have it stick like this. And then you will have a gap in the back, and you could make it smaller, like a lot smaller. That would work too. This is how the other hat the pattern that I bought did it, with iron on Velcro. And that way there's no seam on the outside. But I have to say, the iron on Velcro is not as durable long term as the sew on. Oh, and I just thought of another one. If you had like a hook and eye and you made the hat exactly to your measurements, you could do a hook and eye here, and then that would also work for if you inverted it and had the line on the outside. You could hook and eye it there too. So just another option if you're making it for yourself or you know the size. And for the elastic, for this version, I'm not going to do the elastic just because I need to like figure it out first, but I would just use a hair tie, I think. For when I'm done making the hat, I would just like roll it up and just use a hair tie around it. And then you have your hair tie and your hat at the same time. Okay, I'm just full of ideas today. But I have this thing called band roll, or on Amazon it's called staple 1.5 inch interfacing. It looks like this. And I bought like the hugest roll ever. It was kind of pricey for this much, I have to say. But what it is, it's like an interfacing, but it's not fusible interfacing. So this is something you would put in, like if you make pants or trousers, or actually pretty much any. I haven't used it yet, to be honest, but I should. I keep forgetting to, but I should put this into all of my pants. Like I just made Pomona pants last week for the first time, and I like it. It's super good, but I forgot to put this in. But even for any elasticized waist, if you sew this into your waistband, it will keep it really firm. You know, like sometimes elasticated waistbands can like fold like that, and it just, I don't know, it doesn't look right. This is the kind of stuff you would put in. So I was thinking maybe I am going to interface this with at least a medium weight, and I say that because I have medium weight interfacing right now. I have heavyweight coming today, but I don't think it came in the mail yet. So if I'm impatient, I'm gonna have to use the medium weight. But if I can put this into the side panel, um, I think that'll make it really stable, especially when you roll it up. It's not going to get all crinkly and everything. This is only 1.5 inches though, so I'm not sure if I may have to shorten the brim. I don't know. But you see, if it was like this, it would be really easy to roll, and it would keep its shape and unroll really nicely. So for now, I'll just cut a piece so I have it ready, and I won't forget to use it this time. So I'm just going to fold it in half. I'm going to cut a little bit extra just in case. It's going to be on a curve. So I cut a 25.5 inch piece of this band roll, and these two pieces I cut at 3 inches. Okay, so I have all my pieces. I'm going to mark the wrong side of the canvas since I can't tell which side is which. Let's just do this side as the wrong side. Okay, now I'm going to do my interfacing. Okay, for the interfacing piece, I think I'm going to trim off 1 centimeter in, or like 1/2 inch in from the inner portion, not the outer edge, but the inner edge. And I think this will help make it less bulky at the seam. Because when I look at this hat, I interfaced the Mickey Mouse part on the brim and the side panel, and look how like weird it is. I don't know, like bulky and not flexible, which is, I don't know, not really what I want. I also didn't top stitch it, which I am gonna do for this one. So now I'm just going to iron it onto my lining fabric, or my flimsier fabric. I just have my Cricut Easy Press Mini that I swear I use like every single day. So yeah, I'll come back after I finish. And now we're going to attach the side panel, right sides together. So you have to kind of think about like which side is longer, and the longer side is going to be pinned to the brim. You don't want to mess this up and do it the wrong way. So pin from the notches. And I think for this one, I'm going to sew it from the center out to the center out, if that makes sense. Mostly because I don't, I'm hoping this will like all match up, but just in case it doesn't, I don't want to have like one side too long and I got to cut it. See, this side almost lined up. We'll see how it turns out after I go from here to here. And then after that, I'm going to sew from here to this end just to make sure. And then we're going to do the same exact thing for the canvas piece, or the outer piece. It's just a tiny bit longer also, which is fine. Okay, so I have my inner, or my lining, and my outer hat pieces pinned. I'm going to go ahead and go to the sewing machine. Luckily for this project, my thread and my bobbin can be the same color. If you picked a lining and an outer color that you want to use different threads for, you can totally do that and do the top stitching and everything without having to keep changing your thread over and over. See my previous bucket hat tutorial and I kind of explain how that works. You just have to have one color, designate one color as the top and one as the bobbin, and do your top stitching according to that, having one side down or the other. It's not hard and you don't have to keep changing the threads and all that stuff. Okay, so I'm at my sewing machine. I have a Brother SE 2000 that I absolutely love and I got like a few months ago. I'm using a thread. I wish I could show it to you. It is super old. Hopefully so it looks like this, but it is a brown thread. I don't know if it's my mom or my grandma's thread. So hopefully it doesn't like break, but it's the perfect color and I didn't have any other thread colors. So we're gonna just try it. I'm gonna move my needle to the middle. I'm gonna change my stitch length to 2.5 millimeters. You can decide which side you feel more comfortable sewing with, the straight side on top or the more lumpier side on top. And I guess I'll go with the more lumpier side. Sewing machine has like this foot or knee lever to put the presser foot up and down. Super handy when you're sewing stuff like this that I want to use 2 hands for. You can just like lift it up though and adjust if you needed. So let's go ahead and sew. I also have my walking foot on and I think that helps a lot when sewing fiddly things. I'm sewing over my needles. Sometimes it's worth the risk of breaking your needle to do that. And when it's like fiddly like this, sometimes I think it's worth it. So, but if you don't want to, please do not. I don't recommend it. Oh my gosh, I realized I totally forgot to sew from the center out and center out. Apparently it's working okay though, so I guess you don't have to if you pin well. And I'm also sewing at a 1/2 inch seam allowance, if I didn't mention that before. So what you want to look for is you don't want folds or sewing over a fold in your fabric because that's going to translate into a fold on the outside. So just try not to. And if you need to, lift up your presser foot, move around the fabric, and then start sewing again. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and sew the canvas one and come back. Okay, now I remember what I was going to tell you before. I was going to say always make sure your fabric is pressed when you're making hats, especially so just because I know for me, I wash my material always because I don't want shrinkage, but I don't always iron the whole yardage of material, but it's super important for hats because once you form it into the hat, it's super hard to press. Like if I was even going to press this would be very difficult. So make sure your material is pressed before you start making a hat. So the next thing we're going to do is clip your seams, and this will just help the movement of the hat so it won't be so stiff and kind of bulky like this one. I keep referring to this one as like the bad hat, but yeah, I learned a lot trying to make that one, and I'm sure I'll learn a lot making this one too. So when I clip it at an angle and I don't go like super, super close to the seam, maybe like a millimeter or 2 away. And I do this every 3 inches or so. This is not a really strong curve, so it should be okay if you do like 3-4 inches. And you also want to just use your hand and feel so you're not cutting anything you're not supposed to. It's very easy for some fabric to be a little bit bunched up and then you cut through it, and then that's always a sad, sad day. Okay, and then now we're going to press it towards the side panels. The easiest way I found is to place your brim down because it kind of wants to go that way anyways, and then fold it up and press. I think this one might need some steam because it's a thicker fabric. This way you can also check too if you have any little tucks that you don't like and that you might want to fix at this point when it's easy. I also like to go this way because it really opens the seam up It's kind of hard to do that from the other side of the fabric. Okay, so now what I want to do is attach the band roll, or actually just base it on. I was, earlier I mentioned I thought I would put it at the top in this stitch, but I think it might look weird, right? Like it should be more stable at the bottom, if anything, right around where you put your head in. And also, I want to put it in between here. It, it actually might be easier to put it in between here just because the stitching stops it from going over. I was thinking of putting it on over here and then basting it on, but actually this would work better. Plus, if you put it on this way, when you look from the front, if you have like a super sheer material or something, I can even see the seam allowance under here. I mean, you have to look really carefully, but you could, and I think it'll just look nicer without it. I was going to top stitch it separately, but actually when I look at this hat, I top stitched it afterwards and it just makes it like so nice. When you flip it like this, it looks like one piece. It's not two pieces that are just sewn together. Like for instance, this one, where if I went like this, you know, it's not tacked down at all. It would really help if it was, maybe I should try to do that next time I have black thread in my sewing machine. Because also the seam allowances for both the black and the Mickey Mouse pieces are kind of just free in there, and which kind of leads to like the sloppiness of it. This, if you don't have this, don't even worry about it. You don't need this. And oh, I went to pick up the kids and then guess what came? Of course, the heavyweight interfacing. And this is exactly what I wanted. This is, I wish I waited a little longer, but it's a fusible interfacing. It has more of a plasticky feel, which in clothing you wouldn't really want. You'd want a nice soft feel like this, but in a hat, you want this. Like this is going to like bounce back really well, even folded, it bounces back, and that's what you want. So next hat I will use this. Oh, and in case you're wondering, I don't even know, I'll link it down below. I forgot, Big Meta, and I will test it out in a little bit when I make my next hat. Okay, so anyways, for now I'm going to baste this on. One thing about basting it on, I was thinking of doing it at a 3/8 seam allowance, because I'm going to top stitch at a 1/8 seam allowance. It is going to leave little holes, when I take out the stitching after. Depending on your material, it may or may not show. It wouldn't show on this one, but this is the outer fabric. I think for this one, it could show little holes, but this is also the lining. So I'm going to put it on the lining. So just putting it to the seam allowance, like just, you can just shove it in there and it'll go to the right spot. Hopefully this is an easy job. Just going to pin the rest of this and we'll go to the sewing machine. Okay, so I'm going to change my stitch length to the longest. I have a 5mm stitch length I'm going to do, and I think 3/8 from the seam will be right here. If I line the seam right here to the edge of my left side of the press. I do want to keep the seam allowance neat because we're going to top stitch and that's how it's going to stay. So I do want it kind of neat. And if I need to help my fabric along, I could probably curve it up like this because that's how it's naturally going to be. Okay, so my next step is to figure out where to put the fuzzy part of the Velcro. So this is wrong sides together. And here's my Velcro. When I wear it, I kind of want to match what I had with the other one. And I do want the fuzzy part facing in right here. Because, it really doesn't have to be that big. because I was thinking I was going to sew it into the side seam. So maybe I'm going to cut it down to 2 inches. Yeah, I'm happy that I can sew it onto the band roll and anchor it down that way instead of just sewing it onto the fabric. And then when I pull it on and off, you're actually kind of like not pulling on the flimsy fabric, but this is definitely a more delicate fabric than the canvas. So I'm going to sew it in maybe like 3/4 of an inch. Actually, let me trim up the sides. Maybe that's a good idea, because the next step we are going to sew them right sides together, leaving a little turn out area. I'm going to trim it up. So matching the corners up here and then the curve. Let's just trim up from here to here. Okay, this is the side with the fuzzy part. I'm going to do it about 1/4 or 3/4 of an inch in. That way it'll be 1/4 of an inch from the edge when it's finished. And I'm going to sew it exactly on the band roll. So pin it. Okay, I'm just going to, not search, but stitch around here at a 1/8 inch seam allowance in a rectangle. So if I was not doing a tester, I would put white thread in just to, you know, make it look a little bit nicer. So let's do right sides together. I guess maybe starting at the center seams. I'm going to pin around. So we're going to sew all the way around, and we're going to leave an opening. I think I'm going to leave it where the Velcro is going to be attached. I think that'll be the easiest way. Maybe I don't want it to be super hard to turn around. I think at the least you have to have at least a 2.5 inch opening, but I think I will do at least 3 inches just because I don't want to have a hard time. So I'm going to be sewing, so actually from here to here. We're just going to start here, go all the way around, and stop here. Also, when I'm pinning this, I think I have to be mindful that this is the outer side. So I want to be pinning it curved. I don't want to be stretching it this way and then the lining is bigger. I think, yeah, I didn't do that good. Sometimes the lining gets bunchy when it's bigger than the outer part of the hat. So if you're going to err on one side, it should be that way. See, I think it's like a little bit bigger. I'm going to have to match up the curve on this and ease it in, because this part, the curve needs to match. I think I will just do 1/2 inch just to keep it consistent, and maybe the 1/2 inch seam allowance inside will help keep it a little bit more stable too. Actually, one other thing, I want to start 1/2 inch away from the edge, because if I sew all the way in, I'm going to have a hard time turning it the right way. Okay, so this is what it looks like. To trim these threads, and now we're going to just clip the seams. Not, you don't have to do so many on the top, but on the curve on the bottom, I think it'll help make it lay flat. If you have a very fraying kind of material, you could also serge this afterwards. Like, I wouldn't only serge it, but serge this after. You might also want to trim off a little bit of the end, like this side, because we're going to have to turn it out. Oh, I noticed a little fold right here. I could fix it or I can leave it. I think I'm going to leave it because I'm kind of lazy, but I just want to know if this is going to work. But yeah, you got to watch out for those because it'll show up. Okay, and now we're going to turn the hat out gently. You know, there's a lot of stuff. I did leave 3 inches, but it is kind of a thicker material. So this might take me a while. I don't want to do this whole thing on camera, but I'll just start it off so that you can see. Just gonna carefully turn it right side out. Having the band roll in here makes it a little bit trickier. Next time, maybe I'll just leave the whole side open, and then this will be super fast because I'm gonna have to top stitch everything anyways. Okay, so I kind of got most of it out, but we're gonna have to do better than that. So for the corners, like a dull wooden chopstick is good to use. Just gonna push out this corner. You can use whatever you want, but the chopstick is my tool of choice. See, maybe I could have gone like 1 inch in. I just don't want, I guess you can't see it. It could have been a little bit further in, I guess. And then now we have to push out the whole seam on the outside. I think it's better to use your finger for this than the chopstick. Okay, but I have short fingers, and if I can do it, you can probably do it. So just go ahead and push out that seam as far as you can, and then kind of finger press it flat so you don't have to do it again. So now we're going to press it with the lining part kind of on the inside so that you can't see the lining from the outside. And I think I'm going to use some steam for this. Just ironing the brim out while I'm there. Anyways, you know, this fabric is so cute. Maybe I should have made this the outside and the canvas the inside. That's why ideally it was supposed to be reversible. So now we have to attach our Velcro, and this is sew on Velcro, so it's, I mean, it's plasticky, but it's not like that bad. It's not going to fray or anything like that. If I attach it to here and then you can't see it from the back, I think it'll be fine. Like on the other hat, it is attached to a ribbon, which kind of, you know, looks nicer, but for my purposes, I think this is okay. And so now I'm going to turn this part in 1/2 inch. And we want this pretty neat because once we top stitch it, that's going to be it. You know, that's how it's going to look. So I just press the canvas part first, and then now I'm going to make the lining match the canvas. And then I'm going to stick our Velcro in at least 3/4 of the way in. Make sure that it's facing the right way because it wasn't. You could put it in more too. I mean, it depends how much you want it sticking out. Like that's sufficient, right? Let's just pin it. Okay, you want it to be the same part in the middle. You don't want the Velcro to be up here or down here. You want it right in the middle where it's going to line up perfectly. So now we're going to top stitch around the whole hat. So from here all the way around here and then come back up. We're also going to top stitch over here, I think. Yeah, I think that'll look better. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to start on top of the Velcro because I'm going to have to back stitch anyways. And then so I don't back stitch up here and then also back stitch right there. Okay, so that's what it looks like. I'm just going to go ahead and go around the whole hat. My battery is almost running out, so I'm going to just finish this up and then go back to. So while I was at it, I also did the top stitching right here, and it looks nice on the outside, but for the lining, the top stitching didn't like catch in some spots like where it's supposed to. Like this is good, good, not good. Also, I need to take out the basting stitch, but I'll do that after. Yeah, but other than that, it looks really good. And I'm super happy with this. Sorry, don't mind my no makeup face, or I have makeup, but I sweated most of it off and did not have time to reapply. So let's try on the hat. So I think it looks pretty cute. This is what it looks like from the back. I actually haven't seen it. I'll have to look at the video to see what it looks like from the back. But I like it. I think it looks good from the outside. I mean, I could iron it a little bit. I wanted to make it reversible though, which I kind of do because this pattern is actually super cute. So this is what it would have looked like if it was reversible. It's so the basting stitch is still on there, which is creating another wrinkle. So try to disregard that. But you can also see the band roll like through the thin material lining. So that's one thing to take into consideration. If you did an interfacing, it would look more, a little bit smoother like this because it would be on the whole piece. So that's one thing. Another option would be to just keep the band roll because I think that's really helpful when I show you how I'm gonna like store it. If I just made it so that it was only the band roll width, that would actually look fine too. I think it's not gonna, literally the top of this part that I just folded in is like maybe half an inch. So that would work too. Like the band roll I think really helps. I know it's kind of a specialty item, but say when I wear this hat, right, I'm going to store it in my bag like this. I'm just going to roll at the top. And then like grab a hair tie and then put it around here like this. So perfect. You can like make your ponytail and have your hat also. If I did like the mom bun thing, I don't know. I don't know how to do it, but it would be like this and then like that. Another option would be to, if you wanted it to be reversible from the other side, you could make the Velcro look cute, or at least do like a covering with the actual material, like a matching material. I mean, it wouldn't be that hard to put a little like piece of this lining material over it, but super happy with this. It looks a lot better than this one. That's not adjustable, so you'd have to put it on like that, and then hopefully it fits around here for you. It may or may not. The next hat video I'm gonna do is on this one, which I did buy. It's the, I'll link it down below, Boone and Buckley. This is also a good ponytail type, wearing type of hat. So you'd have a lower ponytail, like a regular, not high ponytail, and then this one has a hole for your ponytail in the back. And this is more of a visor style where it's longer or wider in the front and it gets narrow on the side. I'm going to make it out of the exact same materials and then we can decide which one looks the best. Like I don't look good in hats, so like I'm so picky, but this one is very practical. Like it's super comfortable. Like the way that it fits, it's very comfortable, and but you can still tie your hair back, really helps. It also comes, the pattern also comes with a bucket hat style where it's wide all the way. And that's kind of how I got this idea because the pattern for it looks more like this. But yeah, so what do you guys think of this hat? Are you willing to make one? I'm actually super happy with the pattern, the way that it came out. And it took a little while and a little bit of creative energy to figure it out. But if I could possibly, I mean, you saw what I did with the Mood Fabrics patterns. You could essentially recreate it yourself. You would just, print two, attach them and everything, cut a curve. But if you wanted the pattern, if I could figure out how to make a PDF of it, it's kind of big, so it'll probably be like 4 sheets of paper. I mean, I download PDF patterns all the time. I just don't know how to exactly make it so that other people can use it on their computer. That would be another project for me. But yeah, if I can do that, I eventually will link it down below, and then you guys don't have to figure it out yourself. Although everyone has a different head shape, and I'm definitely not a professional yet where I can make different sizes. I would only be able to make this size. Although, to be honest, it is adjustable for like 2-3 inches. So you could make it bigger. So yeah, that's a possibility. I will look into it, but I mean, only if people want that. I'll also link the band roll if down below if I can find it. If not, don't sweat it. just use interfacing like that heavyweight interfacing I just showed you. That is almost, it doesn't have as much bounce back as the span roll, but it will have more than just regular medium weight interfacing. Same material. I will definitely use the heavyweight interfacing for the brim. I hope this inspired you to create your own sun visor. I love this kind of hat because it keeps you a little bit cooler versus a bucket hat. And I really love how you can just throw this in your bag. I'm always like out somewhere, so I just, and I go walking and everything too while my sons are at practice. So having it be able to roll up like this and packable, this is actually a better way to store this because it'll help it keep its shape. This was like my goal for the week and I accomplished it. So I'm super happy. But yeah, so thanks for watching and I will see you in my next video.